So last episode, we did all the floors and I built this fuel tank enclosure, which was one of the biggest things that I had left to figure out in order to get this thing fired up. I need fuel tank. And now that that's figured out, so some of you could guess what the other puzzle piece that's missing is. We are getting back to work on the NASCAR slot Miata build, and this is a really exciting turning point because we finally have the last and really the most difficult piece of the puzzle to source. It's so critical, it's got to be right, it's got to be perfect, otherwise all of this effort is wasted. And we finally have that piece, which means we have all the pieces. It's a matter of bolting on shiny new parts, making some lines, tiny bit of wiring, and one fab project, which is the one, fortunately, I'm looking forward to the most, to try to kick tires, light fires on this thing. So, yeah, I haven't even opened the box yet. I've been waiting for you. So let me show you and myself this piece. Oh, I'm so excited. Well, before we get going down this rabbit hole, I want to talk to you about rabbit holes. Today's video sponsor, BetterHelp. Now, I say that because something I learned a long time ago was that I would do this thing, and you could call it the all or nothing mentality. I call it the rabbit hole loop, and it's where you decide to do something, and the first step's totally doable, but then you're like, well, I'm going to take that step. Might as well just go to the next step, and then the next step, and then it becomes there's so much to do that you just pop back out at the top, and you're like, I can't do any of it. It's too much. For example, I've been looking at planes because I'm working on getting my pilot's license, and at first I'm like, oh yeah, I can definitely buy a plane that's like what I want, but then I'm like, well, if I spend a little more, I could get this kind of plane, and to get a nice one I need to spend a little more, but then at that point I'm kind of at this category of plane, and then the next thing I know I'm looking at planes that I can't buy. And then the rabbit hole loop is well, never mind, I can't afford a plane, can't buy a plane. But the reality is I just talked myself so far down the rabbit hole that if I'm going to do it, I got to do it all the way, that I didn't do any of it. And that happens a lot. And once you notice that, you see it everywhere. And if you can correct that, which don't get me wrong, is a daily fight, it helps a lot. And that's why I think BetterHelp is so cool, because it basically just shrinks that step to about as small and painless and frictionless as it could be. I know a lot of people who've talked about trying therapy and they're curious about it, but they don't know. You don't really know till you try. But trying was such a big step that they just procrastinated on it. They never got around to it. Whereas BetterHelp cuts out all those steps. You go online, you take a 5-minute questionnaire, you get matched with a licensed therapist. If they, for whatever reason, aren't the right fit for you, you can switch as many times as you want. You can do it pretty much any way you want. Video call, text, phone call. I've never regretted just taking the small step, dipping my toes in the water, getting a feel of the temperature, seeing how it is, and then going from there. Sometimes I go all the way down the rest of the steps. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? Maybe this isn't for me. I'm glad I didn't go all the way down. So, but what I've realized is that you can really only learn that from trying. So if you are interested in trying something you've considered, go to betterhelp.com/TaylorRay with 2 R's to get a 10% discount on your first month. So speaking of rabbit holes, though, as I said, we got a lot to do. This is a deep one, so I'm gonna. All right, so there's a guy out west named Jerry Johnson. Now he happens to drift an FRS with the exact same Dodge R5 P7 NASCAR motor. Exact same engine. And if you have any interest in hearing what this thing may sound like, I'll put his socials on the screen here. You can go watch the videos of his car. I've watched several. It hypes me up every time. So this is literally a spare from his race program that he even took the time to pre-jet for us. So it should be, again, as plug and play as it's going to get. You'd be surprised how hard it is to find a carb for these things. And it's one thing, whenever you buy these used NASCAR motors, they never ever come with a carb. Ever. I don't know if I've ever seen one that came with a carb. Let's check this bad boy out. Ooh, it's already looking fancy. Oh my goodness. Oh, and I love that it's pink. This is a Bill Pinkman carburetor. Jerry swears by him, and Jerry's the one who convinced me to go carburetor on this thing. He made some compelling arguments. I was Mr. I know fuel injection. Look at that bad boy. Whoo, baby. Look at that billet. Dang, dude. I'm pretty pumped seeing this thing in person. What a freaking unit! All right, let's get this thing tossed on the car. I mean, why not? I'll start working on everything else, I promise. I just put this thing on because it made me feel better. I need to find some better bolts. I think I have some. I do not, in fact, have some. Oh, this is gonna be, oh no, it's not too bad. You know, for a long time, I didn't understand how these engines could possibly make the power they make. So they make 830 crank horsepower, and that's pretty on par with a high compression version. A lower, like 10.5 to 1 compression motor will generally make mid to high sevens. But once you see one up close and you look at the intake and you look at the cylinder heads, the valve train, all of that, it starts to make a lot more sense. Dude, this thing's so light too. Here's the moment we bestow this beautiful carburetor. Look at that unit. I don't think these bolts are even gonna reach, are they? Oh, they'll reach enough to get us for right now. We need to get a gasket anyway. That's okay. This being carbureted America, that stuff's pretty easy to get a hold of. Grab a hold of it. Now she's a real NASCAR motor. I was thinking I was gonna have to come up here and make like a, because I'm gonna do, we're doing a mechanical throttle linkage. Okay, well, if it's at ships, we need to get the distributor on. That's a big piece of this puzzle. Yeah, anyway, I know what I need to do. I'm just gonna start doing it. I forgot I actually have some carb studs in here somewhere. Found my carburetor studs. Whew, I cannot get over how freaking sick this thing looks. Like, would you just look at it? Would you just look at it? It's so freaking sick. Oh man, I can't tell you how long I've been looking forward to having a carburetor on this thing and seeing it on this thing, knowing that means we're real close to firing it up. Which, speaking of, next thing we need, distributor. Dizzy, as they say in the land down under. So we gotta go ahead and cut this section of the firewall out. Now, obviously this would normally call for pulling the engine, but I think we can get away with not doing that, hopefully. Let's give it a go. Now, in my defense, this is a partially logical, not purely lazy decision to not pull the engine out. I mean, I need to know if how much I cut works, which the only way to find out is to have the engine in, put the distributor in, or try to put the distributor in. Now, I tried to do it the gentle method, the precision tool of the body saw, and that was not working. So, Sawzall came out, grinder came out, and we're partying. It definitely was a little bit tight here, I'll be honest, to get this cut with the engine sitting right there, but I don't think we put any cuts in the engine. I don't know. I haven't looked because I don't want to know, but I think we're all right. So now we get to see if this dang distributor goes in. This is something I knew I was going to have to do, cut this out. That's why I left the top of the tunnel the way it is, so we could build to it. But yeah, unfortunately, I did not realize how much I was going to have to cut out. The wiper cowl is in the way. Now, if we installed the distributor on the engine, we could maybe get the engine in with the distributor installed, but we like serviceability around these parts, and I want to make sure that, you know, if we have a distributor failure, I don't have to pull the whole engine out to get it out. That's not my MO. So yeah, a little bit of trimming, and still doesn't fit. Nope, doesn't fit at all. Still does not go in. So a little bit more trimming, and finally it goes into place. Now we don't have the cap on it, so we got to see if it's feasible to get the cap on, and of course it's not. Why would it be? Why would it be feasible to get the cap on? So that means we got to do a little bit more trimming. And same concept as leaving the dang engine in, we got to leave the distributor in so we don't have to keep taking it out and putting it back in to test and see if we can take it out and put it back in, or well, put the cap on in this case. So yeah, a lot of cutting and trimming, definitely significantly more than I really expected looking at it. But it looks like now the cap is almost there. It's almost there. Finally. Well, it took quite a bit more hacking than I was anticipating to get that thing in there, but it is in there, and it's removable with the hole this size. Some of you might have thought I was crazy, for cutting it with the engine and the carb in case we ever need to change it at the track or something. So sweet, that's in. That's important. And also my carb spacer showed up. Jerry recommended 2-inch carb spacer. So let's throw that on. And then, yeah, we got a lot of other stuff. I'm gonna get into it. I'm just gonna get into it. You know, there's some projects that just feel like they should be done with hand tools. I don't know. Bolting on it. Oh my gosh. You're distracting me. Bolting on a carb, it just feels like a hand tool kind of experience. Oh, and I got my Amazon carb gasket pack. I had to go with the polished. You know what's up. You know what is up. I hope these studs are actually long enough. No. Dang it. Well, we need some longer carb studs, but for now, we'll just set her on top there. Phew. All right, there's a carburetor there, boy. Maybe we should do a 1-inch. I mean, I think the 2 is important. So we'll leave her. You know what? Maybe I'll order a 1, and then we can play with it and see how things go. But anyway, I just got that in. I'm going to see how it fit, which it doesn't. So, moving on. All right. Well, one of the things that we need to run this thing is the dry sump tank, which we have. That's good news. The only thing is I've got to decide exactly where I want to put it. I have had a plan, but it's here. Let me. It's easier for me to show you. So my plan is to put the tank on the inside here, so the cap will be up here in this wiper cap. Now, to route 2 feeds from over in here to the pump over here is going to be pretty hard to do without interfering with the exhaust, the headers, because we're going to have some pretty elaborate 8-to-4-to-1 headers that are going to need to be equal length, and we're going to need a lot of design freedom to do that. We're already pretty limited. It's a freaking NASCAR motor and a Miata. So I'm kind of thinking maybe my plan A, which was to put the dry sump tank up here, it fits height-wise. The question is if it'll fit with the fan, because my plan is to try to run this thing with a mechanical fan. Front radiator, mechanical fan. Now, we're giving up some rear weight by doing that, but I think it's worth it because this thing's going to be so simple. Carburetor, mechanical fan. The only thing electric required to run this thing will be the ignition boxes. Otherwise, it is if this works, it'll be entirely mechanical. And that, to me, is really exciting. It is kind of the exact opposite of my vet here, where it's got electric power steering, 3 electric fuel pumps, electrical injection, electrical ignition, fans for the radiator, the intercooler, blower fans for the engine. It's so many things. But we'll see. We'll see. Many question marks. First things first, we got to see how this fan fits. I have this race mechanical fan, 6-blade, 17-inch. And I have a 2-inch spacer. So I just need to see how this shakes out and kind of what room will be left for the tank. So let's see. This is definitely fittable. Should work out. Kind of trying a different route here with this radiator. Got good space. Yeah, I think I'm going to do this. I mean, obviously it busies it up a little bit up here, but not having to route lines through bulkheads and cool. Well, I mean, that kind of settles it, which also makes my life a lot easier. Thinking out loud here, but I'm good with it. So dry sump tanks are just kind of awkward things to mount because they're round, and generally what you're going to is maybe round too. But basically they always come with these clamps, which are great for bolting it to a flat surface, but they don't really have a flat surface. And instead of making a flat surface, which is something I considered, a big plate basically to bolt those two, that would probably be the most straightforward way of doing this. But then you got a big plate welded to your tube structure, which is just kind of, I don't know. It is a balance between taking time and making time, like taking the time to do things the way you want to make them nice. But also one of the things I'm wanting to do here is effectively make it to where it's as minimal work fabrication wise to swap bash bar if we ever damage the bash bar. So the more stuff we have one-off welded onto it, the more stuff we either got to weld to prep a spare or have to put on, So anyway, you get the idea. Those are my excuses for making a billet set of brackets for the billet brackets that are already on the thing. We're going to have a little bit of a bracket to bracket situation. And I like pocketing things, but then I often realize that I could just make a hole going through the entire thing and it would be lighter and simpler. So first design I didn't like. Second design, I'm liking it. It's looking good. And we got to do the tedious part of putting the vise in here. This is one of the things that took me a bit to learn with doing the CNC stuff and setting up the cam profile is basically finding a model of the vise, putting the vise in there, and then you're telling the profile, hey, don't run into this, because it makes it a lot easier to be able to do this because you don't have to worry about it crashing. It still could if you got the numbers wrong or if I put it in there wrong, but it helps. And there might be a better way to do this, but the way I've learned for dual-sided operations is just put two vices in. Now, I don't know if I'm going to do both sides, but I like to set up the back side in case I'm feeling froggy. But we got to see how the first side comes out. Choo, buddy. On the money. That is dialed. Sweet. Well, we'll have some cleanup to do on this one. Let's go ahead and make the next one. It's funny, when I first started machining stuff with this machine, it's like I had to watch it because I had to make sure that, it wasn't crashing into itself, and I've gotten better at that to where I don't have to worry about it as much, but there's just something so satisfying about watching this thing just chew away some material, especially the beginning rough phase where it's just kind of taking out the big chunks of material. So satisfying. But we got too much work to do for me to be standing here just babysitting this thing, and it shouldn't take too long. I think it's about a 30-minute program. So in the meantime, while we're waiting on that to finish, so we can finish that to move on to the other things, lots of finishing, moving on. I got my AR Pizzle carb studs. I just had to do it to them. Had to do the nice studs, and we needed longer studs anyway to fit with the 2-inch spacer. I also got my 1-inch spacer, which we can try if anything, but we're going to try to make this 2 work because that's what Jay recommended. It seems like it's a big deal, and of course you can see the carb through the windshield, which, if it works out in a way we can make it clean, it would be kind of cool to see that thing sticking up through the hood. Now, but again, we have the 1-inch in case it would make our lives significantly easier to use that, right? So we got options. Gotta leave yourself options. So basically, I've got to clean this, the first one up, which we'll figure out how we do this, and then, copy paste for the next one. But that's one thing with doing this machining stuff, repositioning is tricky because you've got to get it in the exact right spot. Otherwise, it's going to cut everything off. So I just decided to kind of clean this one up by hand, but what was bothering me is that, when machining it, especially with the ball head end mill, it comes out this like shiny, polished almost. So I had to do a little kind of quick polish on the backside just to make it match, because that's the side you're going to see more so from the engine bay. So moving on to other things I might as well tackle while I'm waiting on the machine to run so I can tackle that. I need to get the fuel tank enclosure that I made ready to go and ready to get bolted on, because we need fuel to run it, and that's our goal here, get this thing running.
while we're busy doing all that, the machine's just mostly doing its thing. I mean, I gotta help it every so often. I gotta check it every so often. But also, this is the second part. Same exact program, same piece of stock, same everything. So we know that the first one ran with no incident. So it's a lot more confidence inspiring to kind of just leave this thing alone. And I mean, that is the beauty of machining stuff, is you can kind of sometimes leave it alone and then it can be doing stuff while you're doing it. It's like having a second set of hands, you know. But one thing too that I've realized through doing this is, you know, the cutting out the main shape is not really the most time consuming process. It's kind of all the little odds and ends and finishing touches. You know, we're using a mill to cut in a radius to go around the tube, and then, you know, all the corners are rounded off, and all of that stuff ends up taking a whole lot of time. And just the main cutting the bulk of the material isn't necessarily too bad. Fortunately too, with this machine, I can get pretty aggressive on the settings and cut fast and a lot and get things done pretty quick. Quick is good. We need quick Rick, quick slick Rick. But we also we got a little mini lathe project. I'm so glad I got these dang tools, man. I'm telling you, I wasn't sure how much I'd use the lathe, but it's one of those things when you need it, it's irreplaceable. And one of my least favorite things to do on it though is center boring with a drill bit. There's definitely probably better tools for this, but when it's this small, it's tough. Basically, we need to make sleeves that are going to go into the tube, the front end tube structure, where we're going to bolt these brackets that we made to, because otherwise, when you try to tighten them down, it will just crush the tube. So we're going to basically make sleeves so it'll tighten down on the sleeve, not crush the tube. And this whole setup, I mean, part of it, if I'm being honest, I just like making billet stuff because it's very fun and satisfying and rewarding, and it looks cool. The other part of it though is, you know, let's say we were to get in a wreck, it would be easy to switch the dry sump tank to another basic front crash bar, because all I'd have to do is drill 2 holes, swap the sleeves over, swap the brackets over. We are partying. So I just turning these down, trying to decide an amount. You know, I want them to have some thickness, but I also want to make sure that we don't have to drill massive holes through the crash bar, right? Because obviously that's not ideal either. And got them pretty much to shape and cut them off, man. The lathe is so freaking satisfying to use. So now that's done. Lots of jumping back and forth, but that's kind of how you have to do it on these projects. Got to finish up our brackets and put it all together, basically. Well, that ain't going nowhere. Obviously, I have to tighten these down. All right, well, our brackets here worked out. I'm pretty pleased with those. They're light, they're nice and stiff. Mounting location, everything, they're solid. So, yeah, basically we got to do lines, but one thing, well, there's 2 things we need. Main thing we need in between lines in here is the oil filter housing, which we now have. So I got this primer one. I've never used one of these on any of my cars, but I like dry sumps, and it's kind of an ideal setup if you have a dry sump to be able to prime the oil system. I doubt I'll use it every single time, but I think it will be important, you know, if the car's been sitting for a couple weeks, a month, whatever, to be able to prime the system up before firing it up for the first time in a while. So, yeah, basically we can either mount this, you know, somewhere over here, or somewhere in this general vicinity. So I'm thinking right here. I gotta grab an oil filter, throw it on it, and see kind of how that shakes out. But we'll keep everything nicely packaged, so that's for sure. It's okay though. See what I mean about the filter stocking? Well, admittedly, I brought you guys in a little late on this one. I already got the general design. Now we got to pocket it. I mean, we got to make it snazzy, too, all right? If I'm being completely honest, I just don't think I have it in me to make something without, like, some pockets and some snazziness, at least attempt to make it snazzy. So, yeah, just kind of threw together some pocket shapes. And, I mean, this one's pretty simple. Admittedly, sometimes I feel like I'll draw it up, you know, in a minute or two, and I'm like, this seems a little too simple to be done. But we got it, you know, we got the design. That's all we really need. Pretty simple. So now we need to cut the base material. The same process as the other stuff. Just cut a big chunk of aluminum. Luckily, I have a bunch of this stuff, and get it cleaned up just because it's a little easier to mark, and then that way any unmachined parts you have are machined off, you know, basically, or at least cleaned up, so you don't have to risk tearing up the thing you just cleaned up, or just machined, you know what I mean. And, yeah, just let this thing go to town, which, again, this shape is a lot simpler. We mainly just got a bunch of bolt cutting to do, which also happens to be, you know, some of the most satisfying to watch because, again, this machine's pretty rigid for what it is for a desktop machine, so I cut pretty aggressive, and, I don't know. I guess you just get to watch the visual progress and then seeing all the chips flying. There's just something therapeutic about it. I don't know what it is, but, yeah, we got a little bit of the finishing work to do, but honestly, that one was pretty easy. A little too easy because, when I took it off, I realized this thing was a chunk, man. This thing was heavy. And, yeah, remember when I said it seemed too easy, so I had to come up with some elaborate pockets. Well, what I should have come up with was putting some angle into it and basically, you know, just hanging away the material that we don't need. The only reason this is as thick as it is to offset the oil filter housing enough to fit. So where it's not doing that, we don't need that. So basically a little zigzagaroo to get this thing, you know, to just take away as much material as I can. I'm trying my best to be a weight weenie on this build because normally I don't, and I always regret it. Things end up heavy. We're not doing that this time. We're fighting the urge. Much better. That thing was heavy. Well, I had to do one more modification. Just pocket for this hole, for this bolt flange. Boom. Yeah, it looks great. Alright, now we get to see if it fits. But, yeah, that's pretty much that. We can clock it too if we want to. Luckily, I actually had these bolts got them from my fixture table. I do not have much in the way of standard hardware. I should honestly order some because all of this needs standard hardware. Like I need longer bolts for that fan mount thing. Haha, sweet. I eyeballed it and it looked like the bolt spacing was a little tight, like I measured wrong. So I opened it up just a tiny bit. Nice. All right, now we'll see if the oil filter is installable without unbolting that top thing. I don't know that it's... Oh, it is! Well, hold on. Verdict's not out yet. No, because this one bolt. Hold on. I guess that is kind of a benefit too, though, is, you know, if we're pulling the filter, could flip this thing up some. But I mean, it's just one bolt. That's pretty easy to get to anyway. Look at that, solid as heck, bro. Let's go. Nice quick billet bracket. The weight saving, weight loss program was definitely worthwhile for this thing. It was heavy. I mean, the only downside is you can't really see it. So yeah, I got those done, got these done. This is looking nice. So really now we just need to clock this. Oh, well, we do need to figure out our oil cooler situation. I'm gonna run a big oil cooler. I was debating running no oil cooler, but you know, one thing I've noticed with the Vet, and it has a really big oil cooler, really fancy dual pass oil cooler. When the oil temp gets hot, the engine has a hard time cooling down. Let's say it's like 150, 160, even 180. The coolant temp will rise, 210, 220 maybe if you're really thrashing it back to back, but then it will quickly cool down to that 180. But if the oil is at 200, 210, it has a hard time drawing, the coolant has a hard time drawing that heat out. So I think if we can keep the oil temperature really well in check, then we should also be able to keep our coolant temperature in check easily. I don't know though. It might be, yeah. I don't know. We might end up needing to do a thermostat. We'll see. But we got those pieces in play and it looks so cool, man. Just to see like the engine with more of its pieces in place. Let me grab it. I'm gonna look at it. We'll mock it up, see what we think. Well, instead of just mocking it up, I decided to go ahead and just mount it, because why not? Why would we not mount it? Because we kind of need it in place. You know, we can get by with doing the other lines first, but, you know, it's kind of nice to have everything that's going to be there, that's going to be interconnected in place before you do anything else. Now, of course, I'm on the billet train, all right? I'm on the train. The train's going fast. I'm having a hard time getting off. I decided to try to do some steel billet steel brackets, because I haven't done much billeting with steel. I've done a little bit, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but I definitely don't have as much time on the keyboard on setting up a steel billet program. But if it works, it simplifies how these brackets can be. It just makes it nicer, makes everything match. All right, you know, that's my logic. So I've got some bar stock that we can cut it out of. So I got that design, got our material cut, and got it cooking. So while it's cooking, the other thing we need to mount to really finalize mounting the oil cooler, it kind of got to be mounted together, is the dang old radiator. We need a radiator. So this one is going to be a little tricky. This is one of those scenarios where if 3D printing was faster, I would probably 3D print this first and then cut it. But realistically, I can cut this in about 30 minutes, whereas it would take me, even a mock-up one, at least with my printer, it'd probably take me 4 or 5 hours to 3D print it, and we don't have that kind of time. We got stuff to do, so we're going to just try to cut it and hope for the best. But I'll be honest with you up front, my measurements on this are a little rough. They're a little just eyeball-ish, you know. Not fully, but eyeball-ish. I even forgot that I had a provision to bolt the dang thing on there, but, you know, we're just chugging, man. It's chugging. That's what we're doing. Sometimes when you chug, you love, right? Yeah. So, like with the dry sump tank bracket, these brackets, I wanted to minimize stuff that needed to be welded on to the tube structure, just, again, for repeatability, but there wasn't a great way to do it in a way where it would need something. So, the something I settled on, Goldilocks, happy medium middle ground of basically just some simple little weld-on brackets, which, again, if I'm going to take the time to make a spare bash bar, I'm sure I can take the time to weld a couple little tabs on there. They're pretty simple, all things considered. So we've got, nice thing about using big thick aluminum is you can just tap right into it. And I'm a big fan of blind fasteners. I do not like having to use a wrench and another tool. One tool. I'm a one tool kind of guy. So hopefully this works well.
Easy as that. Just, an hour or so of designing and CAD programming and a couple hours of CAD machining and some welding and some cardboard templates and some modifying and some grinding. Easy as that. Radiator's in. It's pretty solid. I'll probably want to put a second mount. But check it out. Check it out, Girl Scout. Pretty satisfying. I'm pretty happy with these. Nice functional little bracket. If we welded something on here, it would be more difficult to get this thing in and out. Freaking billet all the brackets. Don't give me a CNC machine because I will billet everything. Oh, so satisfying though, man, to see all these parts come together. But ignore that because this is gonna clock. So just put that out of your mind, okay? Don't worry, it's not too close. We're fine. We're dialed. But yeah, to see all these parts coming together, the engine bay starting to become a freaking proper engine bay. I mean, look at that thing. So yeah, moving on. Get the oil cooler mounted. We need the oil cooler mounted because that's the last piece in our chain to plumb our oil lines. And really, I'm not worrying about that right now. Oil lines first. That's what we need to start it, which is the plan. So, oil cooler. Killer. I got my fittings too, by the way.
Dang, Spark jumped up like a bug and bit me. Is that the line? No. Yes. Maybe. Someone knows the line. Comment below. I can't remember. I need to rewatch that movie. So, yeah. Basically, whipped up a simple design for our bracket. Because, the time I spent on trying to make the billet brackets was admittedly a waste of time. First off, they didn't come out that nice. Second off, I eyeballed them. And unlike the radiator brackets, they did not work out, the eyeballing method on them. So we're going, I somehow got off the billet train, and we're going on the other train, the fabrication train, fabricobbling train, the welding stuff, sheet metal, plasma cutting. I guess it's still the CNC train a little bit, but this one's, two-dimensional CNC. Guys, I'm sorry. Oh, it's just funny. So, anyway, let's see if we can make this work. The first bracket I cut, I mistakenly thought I was going to dimple die it, but it's 1/8" plate, which does not dimple die very well. And I also either measured overall distance or bolt hole center a little bit off, and the holes are a little off. And at first I was just going to modify the holes, but then I realized it'd be literally quicker for me to modify the design and recut it. And I also added in some slots because I thought, hey, it'd be nice if we got to recut it anyway to have some adjustability. I should have made them dang slots in the first place. I don't know why I didn't. But I am really happy with how the brackets that go to the tube came out, because they're pretty tight around it, so they snap into place, and it is admittedly very satisfying to snap those things in, and now to weld them on. Again, this is another one of those I would have loved to make this bolt-on, and I mean, we could have made it bolt-on, but I felt like the sacrifice to make it bolt-onable was not worth the rigidity sacrifice that we were going to give up, so we're welding it on. Again, if I'm going to make a spare one of these bash bars, at least I have all these files. That's one of the big upsides to CNC-ing stuff, whether it's plasma or billet, whatever, is you can remake it. You have it, So we have all these files for all this stuff. So just in a matter of pressing, cut it again. But looks like it's going to work out.
All right, well, we officially have all of our pieces in play. Got our dang oil cooler, radiator, dry sump tank, filter housing, and then obviously the rest of the dry sump stuff was already there. But yeah, basically, we can start connecting the dots, start plugging it all together. I'm really, really happy with how this radiator oil cooler mounting situation worked out. The packaging is really solid. They're both tucked behind the bash bar. You know, they're tucked up pretty high, all things considered. And then we still got plenty of room for the fan. Let me show you. I know, I read your mind. Some of you were doubting it. Some of you are doubting it, but I've already checked, so I know. So that's obviously with it sitting on top of the bolts. Still got nice clearance to the radiator. Oil cooler being so close to the radiator will help it pull air through the oil cooler as well. So have a nice little combo deal there. I'm really, really glad we went this route. All this packaging, you know, for line routing and stuff. Because, you know, with building cars, it's kind of like, you know, in boating, essentially the least maneuverable vessel has the right of way. Because it's the least maneuverable. So, for example, if you're a boat, power boat, coming up on a sailboat, it's your job to get out of the way because it's easier for you to do so. If I'm in my jet boat coming up on a larger boat, I usually try to be the one to get out of the way because I can maneuver quickly. It sounds random, but it's kind of the same with builds, right? Certain parts of the build are more maneuverable than others. So, for example, routing AN lines and how we choose to make them and where they go, there's a lot more wiggle room there. It's a lot more maneuverable than headers, for example. You know, with we're putting a NASCAR motor in a Miata, there's not a lot of space. It's going to be hard enough to just get the headers equal length and around everything that's there. Now imagine if we had pre-existing lines that we made without having the headers done. We could end up in a situation where the line's in the way of the header and the line needs to get out of the way. So with everything being up here, the upside is it doesn't matter that the headers aren't done yet because nothing's going to really interfere with them because everything's kept up front here. While yes, it is more forward weight, which I don't love, if I'm going to have weight past the center line of the axle, I'd rather it be in the front than the rear because you're pivoting on the front. The rear is the pendulum that's swinging around, so it's way more problematic in the back. Number two, while we shift our weight balance, you know, obviously we want rear bias. While we shift it, we do cut a lot of weight out, not having to have lines going all the way back to here through the firewall and then that firewalled off separately. You know, we probably shaved 10, 15 pounds over doing it the other way. And everything's more serviceable. Like I said, ever since putting the dry sump tank in the engine bay of the vet there, I can't go back. It's just so much easier to deal with. This car was always a nightmare to change oil on. And because it was a nightmare to change oil on, I definitely didn't change the oil as often as I should, you know, with the old combination. So, let's get to it.
Since I decided to go with this primer oil filter housing, which I do think is going to be very worthwhile, I have to add another feed line from the oil tank. So the oil tank is going to feed the dry sump pump, but the primer pump is basically its own little pump. So we need a separate feed to that, which means I've got to drill into my brand new dry sump tank so that we can put a new fitting in it. You know, the price we pay, right?
Cool. Perfect. A little torchy torch.
The downside to having to modify the oil tank is that it's brand new. But the upside to that is that because it was brand new, it was pretty nice to weld, actually. It's very, very enjoyable. This, on the other hand, this oil cooler, not so nice. Not so nice. This is a used cooler that I had that came with the vet project. And yeah, it's about the trifecta. It's aluminum, I believe cast for the intakes, and then it's dirty and painted or powder coated. So it's just about everything you could not want in something aluminum that you're trying to weld. Because when you weld aluminum, it draws kind of everything into that puddle. So Not complaining, just saying.
Oh, we got it. Dirty. It's like dirty old aluminum. Painted, probably new powder coated. Fluids stuff. We have all our A, B, C, D, E, F, G's to go ahead and try to start plumbing this thing. Start making bacon AN lines. We got quite a few to make. We still have to decide if we're going to go cooler in, cooler out, filter, or filter, then cooler, then back. I really want to go filter last. I think that's what I'm going to do. And then 2 return lines. I don't know if I said that. Quite a few. But it shouldn't take too terribly long once we get going. So let's get to it. Let's get this thing plumbed up. So we need Earl to be able to start it up.
Oh man, it's been a while since I've had to make a bunch of these style and lines and fittings, and I decided to start with the most problematic ones. Not so much in themselves, I guess, but the routing. They're the largest ones, and that's the one. Well, there's multiple downsides to a dry sump, but one of the downsides is it's a lot of lines. It's a lot of lines, and this is a high vacuum setup, so we need big old lines. We're running -16 for the feed, and then dual -16s for the return. That's a lot of massive lines to try to finagle in this whole engine bay here.
Well, it was a little bit of a fight trying to save some of this old line, but I got all 3 16s on, so you can see our feed in back there, and then these are both our returns. I was originally going to go up and in, but it just really crowded this area up, and we've got this oil line going here, these oil lines, plus this coolant line that's going to have to go in there. So I ended up routing them downwards, which is going to make it a little tight around the fuel lines, but I can easily push them out of the way. And then I still got to decide. I'm kind of afraid, no protection, because little chunks of stuff. Yeah, I'm going to stick with the way I always do it. I always put the filter last because my logic is any little contaminants that could be in the cooler, even a brand new one, if the cooler is after, then you're going to send those through your engine. At least with the filter, then all we have is this line between filtered oil and the engine. So I'm going to stick with the plan. Sticking with it. So it shouldn't be too bad. A couple short lines, and it makes this simple because we can just come in. And then, I mean, this one's still a little wonky, but with the PTFE stuff, you got to, trim away the braid, which requires a bunch of little tiny, So anyway, all right, 12A in. Let's do it. I have time and time again found bandsaw to be the best way to cut, especially the steel braided stuff. Alright, this is the Tricky Ricky one. Oh, it's kind of double Tricky Ricky, honestly, because this fitting's a little tight. Believe you me, I don't love this either, but I don't really have another great way to do it. But I mean, it's not kinking. That's the nice thing about this high-end stuff is, especially for PTFE, it's very flexible. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could have gone like all the way down here and then around back up, maybe. Yeah, we'll let that ride. Sweet. Well, that's everything but the -10 to here, which I need to dig around some more and see if I have. For some reason, I feel like I don't have any more line. Otherwise, we'll just use D-Works, which works great. It's just, different color fittings. So it'd be nice to have them all matching, for the dizzles. Y'all know what I'm talking about. All right, well, I started on a D-Works line, but then I realized I didn't have a single 90 left because I used them all on that thing. So I ended up whipping out some just regular rubber line, non-PTFE. I might replace it if I can get my hands on some 10 AN line of this same
fittings, because I have a bunch of fittings, but it doesn't matter for what this is. All this is feeding the primer, right? So anyway, yeah, whew, man, what a feeling to see this all come together. And I know people are probably going to be split, but I am super happy with this packaging to have everything contained in here. Obviously, it's a little tight, it's a little busy, but still plenty serviceable. And yeah, I think it looks good. And then functionally, practically, everything is self-contained in one area. We don't have a radiator back there with lines going to it, a dry sump tank in there with that, an electric water pump, and all this stuff running back and forth. Everything is here, pretty much. Couple that with the freaking sweet carb spacer, but the carb aspect of it, and the plan is working to make this thing so simple. You know, it looks like the fan should work. The hood might be a little tight, but we can always go down a size. It's coming together, man. It's coming together, and it's coming together the way I was hoping it would, which you never know with these things. You know, you start putting it together, and you're like, oh, this isn't gonna work. But it's looking like we might be able to build this thing as simple as I wanted to, and there's just such a reward in that. You know, it's like you can try to just start stripping away as much as possible and it still work. I don't know, there's satisfaction in that, and I get that satisfaction so far from looking at this thing. I mean, it's so cool. And it's just so cool to see all these components in and have the dry sump system done. Our tanks in, our lines are in, our filter housing, our filter, our oil cooler, everything in. And that was really one of the biggest things left to run the engine. From here, it's one fuel line, technically two, I guess. One to the mechanical pump, one from the mechanical pump to the carburetor. I gotta mount the tank, which all I gotta do is drill the holes. I already got the dang thing off over here. I already got the lid holes drilled. I already marked out the bottom. Literally drill, rib nut, boom. Two fuel lines, boom. Ignition boxes are already like on a plate, which I'm gonna redo that, but like to get us going, basically just need to give them power and plug them into the distributor. And that's it. Aside from making the headers, that is definitely going to be a challenge. I'm both looking forward to it and dreading it a little bit, just because it is going to be really, really hard. But it is also going to be anything that's hard. Usually, it's also rewarding when you get it done. So it is probably going to be the most challenging fab project that I've ever done, if I had to guess. So anyway, we got the flanges. I just need a few more parts and pieces for bins and stuff, and a couple collectors, and then we should be able to build them. Yeah. Whew. That's gonna be tough, but once we get over that hump, we are pretty much there to trying to fire this thing up. So again, the oil system was a big part of that. That was one of the big components with a lot of stuff going on that we were missing. So it's in there like swimwear. It's in. I just can't get over this view of just everything tucked in there. I like it. Let me know what you think of it. Would you have done it this way, or would you have gone with the typical remote mount everything way? They both got their pros and cons, but I'm excited for this, and I'm glad that it's working because we get to try it. I've never really done it this way, so. Anyway, I gotta wrap this up. I've spent a bunch of time trying to go flying, so I'm closing in on the end. I'm trying to knock out my last requirements, and it's raining right now. It's even normally, if you go at 7 in the morning, which is what I do, which means I gotta get up at 5, you have like a couple hours before we start getting in that Florida rain. But with just the weather lately, the last like week and a half, it's been, even when I get there at 7, I haven't been able to fly twice now. So anyway, point is, I got a flight tomorrow morning. I gotta get up at 5, so I gotta wrap this up. But I will see you guys next time. For what? I don't know. I need to do some shop stuff, making some big changes. We got project out the wazoo, and I'm so pumped for all of them. So whatever which way, it's all fun to me. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Goodbye. I'm gonna wrap this dang thing up. Jeez. Freaking chatterboxes over here. I want my mistake bracket.